Hello, I am Isaac with American Lighthouse, and my cat Dahlia just jumped down from the ceiling in the basement. Obviously, she found a hole upstairs that allowed it to get down here through here. So now she can just come down at will. I'm gonna have to find a hole and block it so I can, because I don't always want it down here when I'm doing stuff. But it was just a pleasant surprise, and since I'm not playing my Mario, doing my Mario channel, I don't need to worry about my controller or my hands playing the controller without being disrupted, so I can pet her. Um, Th I had 2 ideas, and I think I'm gonna just go with the original one I had before, because I was watching an old Star Trek Next Generation episode called The Drumhead, which is probably one of the best ones. It always still kinda makes me a little teary-eyed at the end when Picard's speeches throughout that episode are just amazing, um, and very much, like, echo the sentiments of our founding fathers. Um, but, um the video I originally wanted to do is I was watching Steven Crowder, and they talked a bit about Thanksgiving because Columbus Day was here. Um, I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but you know, a happy Columbus Day because I'm sorry to say, but screw Indigenous Peoples Day. Not to mean like I dislike the native tribes people of this country. I have a fellow Sioux Indian who's my friend who stays here because he has a home when I let him stay here when it gets raining. So I mean, I don't have a disdain for the Native American peoples, but I understand that they were stuck in the Stone Age, basically. And and so a lot of the ways and the way they did stuff was kind of contrary to a lot of the European ways of doing things. So it led to conflicts and struggles and misunderstandings. But that leads kind of into what I want to talk about is Thanksgiving. Now, there's I believe there's about three possible versions of like what we know as the first Thanksgiving. The most common one was, as I was growing up, the Pilgrims and Indians coming together and sharing knowledge and food. When the after a harsh winter hit the Pilgrims, they were struggling to maintain when a friendly tribe um, came to their aid and helped them and taught them a little bit about the agriculture and farming in the new land because it was very much different than the European world. But that's the most common one. The one that's popped out more like loudly and more often nowadays is that our the Thanksgiving is founded on us stealing a village or something from Native Americans and using the stolen loot and bounty to have a Thanksgiving, which I don't buy into. I don't even buy into the one where we were near death. Uh, the settlement was near death, and the Indians came and helped us. I subscribe to the idea that the first Thanksgiving was actually due to I think it was I want to say John Smith. I could be wrong. There was a settlement, and what had happened was they were still using the old European style of everyone gets land, and you work what you can, and then when harvest comes and everything's harvested, you take what you need. It was a very, very communistic model, not in the sense of what we know as modern communism, but it was very communistic, communal, I guess more social and communal. Um, but within a couple of years, they found that they were having shortages over and over, increasing shortages, and it was due to people who felt like they didn't need to work as much as others and they took basically more than they produced, and so that left shortages. And as I said, I think it was John Smith, but I could be wrong on the person. But the central figure in this story decided after one devastating winter, he decided that people should be allotted the land. Everyone should be allotted the same type of land, the same size of land, and they can grow on it whatever they want, and they got to keep whatever they grew. Uh, and within a year, they had such an abundance of food because man usually produces more than they can consume. So if everyone was just taking what they made, then there was excess, and the excess was used to form the and participate in the first Thanksgiving. And that's the story I'd like to think of it as, because it was the early Americans realizing that the old way of doing things wasn't going to work here. That there was no social net, there was no society, there was nothing that if something happened they could fall back on like in the old world. They don't have the social structures that we have here today, but back in that time, the social structures of the European continent were far above and beyond the social structures and nets of colonial America. Well, at that time, colonial Britain, because they were still British citizens. There hadn't been a thought of a revolution yet, but you can see the seeds of what would become the American idea in that early settlement. That they must get rid of the old, as much as as much as might have been comfortable to them, and they were used to it and familiar with it, and whatever, and change was bad, especially since they were alone in the wilderness. Um, the only known other civilization was across the ocean, and then it takes months. In fact, it took months to get across it. So, Dolly, what are you doing? I don't know what my cat wants to do. Um, so I think that's probably the best story. And they said that it could be any one of those three stories I said. And so I think it's up to you to decide which one of those stories you think is better to pass down. Is it the meeting of the destitute pilgrims and the generous natives? Was it the vicious pilgrims coming and raping and pillaging? Or was it that the new settlers of this land, after coming within probably within 1 year of complete devastation, realizing they had to abandon the old way of doing things and create a new way of doing things in this new world, or they were going to perish. And and it wasn't till a couple hundred years later when the founding fathers had their go at what should go on in this country. But I think that original sentiment of that colony, that settlement, was the first little spark in what would eventually become the American idea, that we must grow, and that we as humans, we've been stagnant in that way of thinking, that way of doing things for so long, and we had just barely clawed and scraped and dug out of the dark ages. And and within from 1600 to 1900, that's 300 years, mankind made leaps and bounds that today, if someone from 1600 came here right now, they would not be able to comprehend a single thing. Not at all. It would all be completely mind-boggling to them. The idea of storing thousands of books on a device no more than 2 pounds in weight. The concept of instantaneous communication across continents, both audio and video. The distribution of food and goods across such great landscapes of the United States, and be it the world. Um, but that Thanksgiving, where they realized that the abundance that they got when everyone was left to their own devices and allowed to keep what they wanted, they realized that there would be an abundance. And then when the abundance came, they saw that this new way of doing things, that each to their own, it was like each to their own, and each to their own, and one, and what takes is it's a communist saying. I can't remember right off the bat. I'll probably put it as the thumbnail in this video. But we at that time, that was the first time that the Europeaners had the ability to do something drastically different, and it could have failed. That capitalist like idea of you have land, you grow on it what you want, and you keep what you grow, was 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 completely foreign, because up until then, people were allowed to have property. They were allowed to do it as long as it benefited the state. This is the first time anyone ever said, "Hey, how about what you grow benefits you and only you, and the state has no say in it." And this time it was probably just a council that that voted and discussed things. Um, but that was the spark, I think. That Thanksgiving, when they abandoned the old way of doing things and embraced a new concept completely foreign to them, and it yielded such a great abundance that they were able to have this vast, great Thanksgiving. And I think that's probably the better story of the three. And as I said, it's up to you to decide which one it is you want to believe in. But I think, especially as an American, because Thanksgiving celebrated in other countries under other names and stuff, but there's nothing, there's very, very few holidays that can be classified as solely American. Even Christmas is celebrated in Japan, not to the extent of, the birth of Christ, but the festivities, the pageantry, the gift giving, the 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 visiting with friends and family. Um, so, but Thanksgiving, I think, is very uniquely American because it was at that point in history when the European pilgrims and settlers that came here had the first notion of changing how things were done and trying to make a better world because this was a brand new slate. They could have easily kept on going, and they might have meagered out a living. But I think because of that one little spark, and then it's in the ether, that idea of self-reliance, of individual sovereignty, of inalienable rights, was started at that point. And as time went on, the idea grew and grew and grew and into the minds of more and more people. And 200 years down the road, we had the founding fathers who quite finally put a finality to that idea, that concept, and coined it the American dream, the American idea. And so this Thanksgiving, be very, very thankful for those pilgrims who in that horror of danger and unknown and uncertainty chose to try something different in hopes of saving themselves, and in doing so created a spark that would lead to the revolutionary ideas of our founding fathers. And I will be definitely thankful for that. This is American Lighthouse. I'm Isaac, and thank you. Goodbye. Stop.